Superhero movies, one of my favourite genres of modern Hollywood filmmaking. So today I just felt like kind of talking about superhero movies and why I really like them. I think one of the main reasons I really like superhero movies is that they're one of the few types of films, mainstream films being made today that can still surprise you really. It's like, there's characters that you like, there's these characters that you know and you like, and all these superheroes, we all know a lot of these guys, and we go to the cinema and see this movie, right? And it's like a book. You know these characters and you're finally going to get to see them on the big screen. But I think the big difference between a film based on a book and a film based on a comic book, so mainly superhero movies, is that with a book, the film is going to more or less follow the story of a book, a novel, or maybe if it's a lazy movie, but stick the first three novels together and make a movie out of that. Anyway, I was saying, but if it follows a book, then you're not going to really, if you've read the book, you're not really going to be surprised by the movie. You can kind of, it's going to follow every twist and turn. The characters who are going to live are going to live, the characters are going to die are going to die. But with a comic book movie, even if you've read all hundreds of issues about a single character, the film can still, it's still a more or less original story based on these characters, and that can surprise you in certain ways. Like, even if you've read all however many 600 issues of Batman, you could still be surprised by the twists and turns of the events of the Dark Knight trilogy. You still didn't know what was going to happen there. Even if you read every single issue of the Avengers since the 1960s, you still didn't know. I'm trying to be spoiler free here. The character who died in the Avengers, you didn't know that that character was going to die, and you won't know who's going to survive Age of Ultron. That's what I really like about comic book movies, is that they're one of the few that can still surprise you in this day and age, that you're already attached to. Because, as we all know, Hollywood is kind of iffy about making original movies. So they want to make movies that kind of already have an established fan base, that people know the story. But again, with comics, so that's why there's a lot of movies based on books and a lot of movies based on comic books. But of course the thing with comic books, as I've said, is they can still surprise you. They can still tell a somewhat original story instead of kind of copy and pasting the novel story into a film, which again, there's nothing wrong with if you want to see that. But if I want to go to a movie and be surprised, I'm going to go see an original movie rather than one based on a book. Having said that, if I go see a movie based on a book, there is a good chance I have not read the book. There is a good chance that I don't even know the movie is based on a book. Another thing that I really love about superhero movies is that a lot of the time they're really fun. A lot of the time, now a lot of them are dark, but at the end of the day, they're not overly cynical. I think you can pretty much guarantee when you go see a superhero movie, the good guy's going to win, the bad guy is going to be defeated. There may be some deaths, but people are still going to, it's going to be you can rely on the hero to save the day most of the time. Watchmen and Alan Moore in general is kind of iffy in that regard. But that's what I really like. And there's this whole other video on this about American cinema getting more and more dark and frankly angry since 9/11, really, kind of the start of the whole superhero wave. And you can see that reflected in superhero movies, especially in Man of Steel. I could do a huge video on the implications of 9/11 and the war on terror on Man of Steel. That actually sounds like a great idea. I'll do that. I need to watch Man of Steel again, but when I do that, I will definitely do a video on that, because I have some, I think, somewhat interesting thoughts on that. And also, the thing I also love about comic book movies, like everything I mentioned here could be expanded into a video of itself, is the whole build up and wait for a new one. This whole, look at the build up of Batman vs Superman. Look at all these casting things they're putting out. Everyone's getting really excited about it, like Ben Affleck as Batman. Excited is a word to use. They're getting emotional over Ben Affleck as Batman. What type of emotion? Well, that's up to you. And then there's Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and it's really. And then we've got Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, and the people who are being, who was it, Elizabeth Olsen and Aaron Taylor-Johnson as Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in Avengers: Age of Ultron. Those are going to be, just the whole build up to waiting for the movie, and like the bits and pieces that we get. I'm kind of trying to build this image of it in our mind, and then the trailer is released, and this whole build up of comic book movies is just so cool. It works with other films as well, but I think it works especially well with comic book movies, because again, you don't really know what the story is going to be, and you're already excited about it because you know these characters and that sort of thing. there was another thing I was going to say. Oh yeah, it's like they're so like a lot of people you say that comic movies are like superhero movies. Oh, they're all the same. They're all just heroes. Girlfriend gets kidnapped and the hero has to defeat the villain and stuff. And that's first of all, they have 2 points to make there. One, that's not entirely true, and two, that's a whole different debate about the nature of storytelling. There, that's like a standard folklore. That's ATU 300 type thing, but that's a whole different thing. But like, not all comic book movies like that. First of all, Watchmen again, but I'm gonna try and leave Watchmen out of this because that's just a really weird one to talk about in the context of comic book movies. But like, look at the difference between, say, Dredd, Spider-Man, The Avengers, The Dark Knight, and Hellboy. Look, those are 5, I think, terrific movies, and they're all completely different. They're all utterly different films, and that's what I love about this. Is that there's a genre, but there's also a lot of diversity within that genre, and then you can break that down by comic book companies, by character, the similarities between characters, the differences between characters. It's just a really, I think, comic book movies really deserve to be studied a lot more than they are, because a lot of them, especially I think Avengers, is a really deep movie. There's some lines in there that call back to other movies set in that universe, and just like 5 minutes ago that you just don't get. That really, the Avengers really deserves a great analysis, because there's some really deep shit in that movie, and a lot of comic book movies, like, and the only ones that have really been studied, I suppose, would be Chris Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, maybe, and maybe Watchmen. But again, we're trying to stay away from Watchmen in a discussion about the generalities of comic book movies. So I think, yeah, I love comic book movies, I love superhero movies, I love superheroes in general, but superhero movies especially, because, you know, it's this world of overly cynical Hollywood movie making, and then you get a new movie every few years about your favourite superhero, or you find out about a new superhero that you didn't know about because this new movie comes out, and you think, like, Hawkeye has gotten ridiculously popular since the Avengers came out. He's gotten his own book series in, like, ever. It's really cool. Comic book movies, superheroes, I love them all, yeah. And also another thing is, like, when they're bad, you know, they don't get forgotten. You can watch a bad superhero movie and then you can join in a discussion with loads of people about how bad it was, because they remember it. And people don't see, if Batman and Robin, if a film had come out at the same time as Batman and Robin and been as bad as Batman and Robin, we would all have forgotten about it by now. But because it was a Batman movie, we all remember it, and we've all seen it, and we all know how bad it is. And that, I really love that idea that there's this whole canon of superhero movies, and we all just kind of, we haven't seen all of them, not even seen all of them, but the ones you do have, you know, people have seen Spider-Man, people have seen Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises, people have seen Avengers. I think that was the main ones. X-Men movies. The X-Men movies, I could go into a whole thing about those. So there's so much to talk about in superhero movies, and a lot of them, I think, frankly, a lot of them are really good. I think finally, it's been more or less 10 years, maybe a bit more, since the superhero thing properly started. And I think Hollywood is finally kind of getting to grips about how to do these properly. And I can't wait to see how they do it, because, oh man, basically, I think superhero movies are the new Western. There's so many of them. They're all fit into the genre, but there's so much diversity within them, and there's so much to talk about, and there is so many people involved in them, both, you know, behind the camera, in front of the camera, and just people watching them and discussing them. So I think superhero movies are a great thing, basically. Superhero movies, you got that from me. Superhero movies are a great thing. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.